Fear is one of the most powerful human emotions. It can paralyze us, push us into doubt, or even make us question our values. Faith, on the other hand, is the inner strength that allows us to endure, to rise above fear, and to stay true to what matters. Surah Al-Aḥzāb, the 33rd chapter of the Quran, places these two forces, faith and fear, side by side. It was revealed during one of the most critical moments in the history of the Muslim community, the Battle of the Confederates, or the Siege of Medina. In that story, we see how believers wrestled with fear, how hypocrites surrendered to it, and how the faithful stood firm with trust in God. Surah Al-Aḥzāb is a Madinan, surah revealed around the 5th year after the migration of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. At that time, Medina faced a massive military threat. Several tribes, along with Quraysh forces, formed a confederation, the Aḥzāb, to attack the city. Outnumbered and under siege, the Muslims dug trenches around Medina, a strategy unfamiliar to Arabia at the time. For weeks, the community lived under extreme pressure. Hunger, cold nights, and constant danger tested their endurance. It was in this setting that Surah Al-Aḥzāb was revealed, addressing not only the external battle, but also the inner struggle between fear and faith. The Quran describes how fear affected different groups in Medina. The hypocrites and those weak in faith openly doubted the Prophet's promise of victory. They said, "God and His messenger promised us nothing but delusion." Their fear made them want to abandon the battlefield, to retreat to the safety of their homes. They even sought excuses to avoid responsibility. This reaction shows how fear, if unchecked, leads to despair, excuses, and selfishness. It exposes the heart's instability. When fear dominates, faith is overshadowed, and people seek only their own safety at the expense of their community. By contrast, the Quran describes the believers. When the believers saw the Confederate forces, they said, "This is what God and His messenger had promised us." God and His messenger told the truth, and it only increased them in faith and submission. For them, the siege was not a reason to panic, but a confirmation of divine words. Their faith transformed fear into resilience. They understood that trials are not signs of abandonment, but part of the journey of belief. Faith gave them courage, patience, and unity. This stark contrast between those who collapsed under fear and those who grew stronger in faith is one of the key lessons of Surah Al-Aḥzāb. In the midst of fear, the surah points to the Prophet Muhammad as the ultimate role model. Indeed, in the messenger of God you have an excellent example for whoever hopes for God in the last day and remembers God often. The Prophet lived through the same hunger, the same cold, and the same danger as his companions. Yet he embodied calm, trust, and leadership. His life was the living demonstration that faith can anchor a person even when surrounded by overwhelming fear. For communities today, this verse is a reminder that leadership is not about escaping hardship, but sharing it, guiding with trust and courage. Surah Al-Aḥzāb does not stop at describing the siege. It also addresses broader issues of social ethics, family life, and respect for the Prophet's household. Why? Because a community facing external threats must also be strong internally. Faith is not only proven in the battlefield but in daily life, through honesty, respect, and discipline. Rules about adoption, modesty, and relations within the community are outlined in this surah to ensure social stability. Without moral strength at home, no community can withstand external enemies. Fear may come from outside, but cracks inside make it more dangerous. Faith versus fear in our lives. Although the Battle of the Confederates happened centuries ago, the struggle between faith and fear is timeless. We may not face an army outside our city, but we face personal and collective challenges that bring fear. uncertainty about the future, economic instability, illness, social pressure, or even crises that shake entire nations. In these moments, we see the same reactions described in Surah Al-Aḥzāb. Some allow fear to overwhelm them, leading to despair or selfishness. Others use faith as an anchor, transforming fear into strength and patience. The surah reminds us that trials are not signs of weakness in faith. They are the very grounds on which faith is tested and proven. The blueprint of Surah Al-Aḥzāb can be summarized as follows. Fear tests us, but it also reveals who we truly are. Faith transforms fear into resilience and trust. The Prophet's example shows us how to embody courage and patience. Community ethics matter as much as military defense. Inner strength protects against outer threats. Every hardship is temporary, but the lessons it teaches can last forever. Faith versus fear. What Surah Al-Aḥzāb reveals is not just a story about a siege 14 centuries ago. It is a timeless lesson about the human heart. Fear is natural, but what we do with it defines us. The hypocrites surrendered to fear and abandoned responsibility, while the believers embraced faith and found strength. In our own lives, moments of crisis will come. The Quran does not ask us to deny fear, but to face it with faith, to see trials not as proof of abandonment, but as opportunities for growth, to stand together in patience, trust, and courage, just as the early community did under siege. Surah Al-Aḥzāb shows that faith and fear will always exist side by side. The question is, which one will we allow to guide our choices? If we choose faith, then even in the darkest of nights we can find resilience, hope, and the light of God's guidance.